Blitz is defined as a sudden, savage attack. It is indeed all this. The effect is sure. The premise is simple. It's a basic, primal confrontation, man to man. No excuses are offered, none accepted.
Welcome to the latest edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com.
Looks like a radio station.
Now, here are your hosts, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers,
Pure athlete yet.
I transcend race, hombre.
Matt Butler,
I don't talk, man. I back it up.
And we are chock full of that, man.
I'm right.
and Jeff Howe.
It's still real to me, damn it.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you're gonna blitz, come strong, or don't come at all.
Well, in the spirit of Stone Cold Steve Austin, what we saw the Texas Longhorns do on Saturday to Iowa State, they stomped a mud hole and then walked it dry. That game was not close. We thought it was going to be a tight back-and-forth game, and dreams of that ended early. Texas wins 24-10, and really the 10 Iowa State scored the touchdown was in garbage time. Texas dominates this game, guys, and we're going to talk about it on this week's edition of Longhorn Blitz with Horns 24/7. I'm Jeff Howe. We will also get you ready for the great traditional Thanksgiving weekend rivalry game for Texas on the road against Kansas at 11 a.m. on Friday. And there's some stuff to unpack. We also got to unpack the Big 12 basically doing what the Big 12 does, and Bob Bowlesby continuing, as Rod says, to be the Michael Scott of conference commissioners. But we'll get to all that throughout this edition of the show. Let me bring in the rest of the team. He is the master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire, and you can find him on Thursday at a turkey fryer somewhere out in West Austin. Matt Butler. Matt, how many fryers will the Butlers have going on Thanksgiving Day?
It'll be a mixture. Pops already came and picked up mine at the house. Uncle already called around to the family to make sure everybody brings them, because we always bring enough just in case, because like last year at like 7 a.m. had to drive home and pick one up because one burner wasn't turning on. But yeah, normally have a rolling 3 of them going, probably 2 with oil, and then 1 always heating up and stuff.
I love Matt's family when they get together for Thanksgiving, because Matt talks about how, really they just sit out there and kind of drink and fry turkeys and eat turkey all day. Oh, that's really what they do. And when I usually roll up to get my turkey, they're just sitting out there drinking beer and frying turkeys and gnawing off of whichever one had just come out. So
yes, it's sort of my dad and uncle's on the back porch, and then inside my mom and aunts are normally cooking like a breakfast quiche or something like
there
that.
You go.
Yeah, so
I don't know if he enjoys quiche, but I know the third member of our team, our lockdown corner here on the show, he enjoys a good yard bird and knows a good thing about a good yard bird. 2002 UT All-American, 2002 semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, 4th round draft choice of the New York Giants back in 2003. Spent his NFL career with Giants, Lions, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and a year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. When he was done with football, got himself back to Austin, Texas, into 40 acres where he earned his degree. When he gets his T-ring in, he will wear it proudly. Nevertheless, he's a card-carrying member of DBU. Number 21 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Rod Babers. And Rod, the Thanksgiving tradition of actually getting to eat a real meal on Thanksgiving is something you're still getting used to after your time on the 40 acres, your time with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving had been a work day. It is no longer a work day for you, so you actually get to enjoy Thanksgiving like the rest of the country.
Yeah, even when they were trying to keep up the tradition after the Aggies left, the Big 12,
TCU and
still had to
Texas
work
Tech.
on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's always been weird for me. I still get it mixed up. I was actually recently. You were in there yesterday when I was talking to one of coworkers about the game, and I kept referencing it like it was happening on Thanksgiving. He was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "But the game." I was like, "When do I have to do it?" He's like, "No, the game is on Friday." And I was like, "Oh yeah, keep forgetting."
one
so
of
I'm
those
so
AMers.
yeah, I'm just so trained almost, like,
Yep.
you know what I mean, to play on Thanksgiving. Even in the league when I was playing with the Detroit Lions, we played on Thanksgiving all the time.
So, Rod, what are your big Thanksgiving plans this year?
Well, I got family in town. My mom's coming to town. My dad's coming to town. My girlfriend's mom is in town. Future mother-in-law's in town. Yeah, man. So it's big. My brother's gonna fry turkey, and then hell, man, it's gonna be one of those modern day Thanksgivings. My mom's never met my girlfriend's mom, so it's gonna be strange and weird. And
That's
hopefully
awesome.
it's all good. But if it ain't, I'm gonna have plenty of tequila. So it don't matter.
Holidays.
That's what it's all about. Hey, real quick, just a piece of personal business, not for me, but a member of the Blitz family, and he's a big part, Rod, of your show, big part of everybody's show at the Horn. CB's been having some family health issues with his dad, his grandma. I actually literally just saw a tweet from him He got a call from his grandma, and she's being discharged from the hospital.
Oh, that's good news.
Way to go.
So CB, it's good to know everything's clearing up for you around the holidays.
brother.
Yeah, CB's such a big help for us and all the shows. I mean, he's always tweeting us facts and stuff and making sure we're staying up to date on stuff
Best
on Twitter.
unofficial producer in the
Yeah,
business.
so
And then best like Longhorn fan on the internet. Almost
Absolutely.
like I've seen him. Like if you were to go and poll people worldwide, people know CB because he's the guy, the Texas guy. He's the guy
I
that
think
knows
Dallas
his stuff.
Morning News did people you should follow.
it was like the
if you're a
top
Longhorn
10
fan
most important like
and
Texas Twitter
and
follows.
He like made the list.
Congrats,
Talking about
CB.
among like Chris Del Conte.
Well, I remember when
Tom
social
Hardy.
media blew up and we were all like, "Who is
CB's
this?"
there.
CB
It's
guy?
like CB. Yeah, well, yeah. Everybody, you got a different name for him, but yeah, man, our thoughts and prayers with you, CB.
Yeah, CB from everybody at the Horn, obviously us here at the Blitz. Glad to hear everything is going well for you during this holiday season, and it's also going good for the Texas Longhorns, guys. Like I said, a 24-10 win over Iowa State. And Rod, I know you want to start with the defense. When I was with you on the Rodcast on Monday, a lot of it centered around the defense, and you know, I've as this game unfolded early, I felt watching this game the same way I felt watching the Notre Dame Syracuse game on TV. All I needed to watch was the first possession for each team to know how that thing was going to go, and it played out as expected.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, that's kind of how this game was. You watch the Texas defense from the start. It was a different defense than we've seen. And Matt and I were talking about this before the show. The offense, that's as good of an opening drive from the Texas offense as you'll ever see. 9 plays, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Rod, this thing was over pretty quick.
Well, honestly, it was pretty much over before it actually really got started. The truth is, this is the best defensive performance for an entire game, all 4 quarters that we've seen probably this entire year. You got to go back to last year.
The bowl
to probably
game last
find,
year, probably,
yeah, a better performance. We're talking about all 4 quarters. We all can remember that quarter or that half where the Texas defense collapsed. Had a great Oklahoma game, 4th quarter collapse. Had a great game overall versus, I would say USC, but the 1st quarter was a little weird. Tulsa, 4th quarter, Baylor, 4th quarter, things like that. So, yeah, K-State is another one. I mean, we can go on and on. I think all Longhorn fans know that defensively, that's really been a theme, an unfortunate theme. This game, Todd Orlando, he kind of went back to the not only being the more physical defense, and he stated that in the week before, right? He wanted to have padded practices because they were getting gashed. I think they had 60 missed tackles in the previous 3 games before Iowa State that I had tracked it, just me personally.
Correct if I'm wrong, Rod. Weren't you tracking tackles in the West Virginia game and you just stopped at some point because it's just
He resumed.
Well, no, I went back and actually
Okay,
did it
you
all the way
went
through.
back and did.
Initially, I did because I was
I
just
saw
disgusted.
Rod, and he was literally tallying up missed tackles.
And I counted 60. It was actually I think 24 in the Oklahoma State game, 17 in the West Virginia game, and 17 in the Tech game, if you want to be exact. But in this game, there were only 8 that I counted. So I think number one, it helped that they were physical and they were tackling well. I don't know if the scheme helped them being better positioned to tackle, or if the tackling made the scheme more effective. Like
They sort of worked
the chicken
together,
or the
though.
egg kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I do believe Todd Orlando, this was the most aggressive game plan that maybe he's had all year long. Even P.J. Locke admitted, he said, hey, man, we blitzed way more than we normally blitz in this game. Hell, man, they blitzed. I got to go back and look at the percentage of plays that they actually brought 5 guys. I'm going to go do that and track that next time. But
it's
I'm
probably
going
in the 80s, Rod. I mean,
dude, it's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And hell, I saw Caden Stearns blitz. And you never see Caden Stearns blitz. He was playing middle fielder early in the year. They had him blitzing. They actually had B.J. Foster and Caden Stearns playing roles that seemed to me like they were interchangeable, although maybe not classified in terms of their position as a nickel or a dime.
Right.
But they were utilized in terms of versatility in
Both
a
of
lot
them played in the
different ways.
box. Both of them played over
Played in
the
the
top.
box. I saw Caden Stearns covering Hakeem Butler in the slot. I saw him blitzing. I saw him playing a whole player. Sometimes he was a spy. I mean, they had him all over the place. And what did he get? 3 tackles for loss. Of course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a great player. You just got to put him in a position to be successful. You put him as a middle fielder, well, hell, people are going to start staying away from him or scheming to exploit him there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think he just mixed up the tendencies, man. That Gary Johnson and Anthony Willer were moving around. Malcolm Roach playing D tackle. Malcolm Roach playing D end. Charles Omenihu playing D tackle. Charles Omenihu playing D end. Sometimes he had 2 guys with their hand in the dirt. Sometimes it was 3. You know what I mean? Like sometimes he went with a 4-man front. Hell, there was even times I saw him with a 5-man front and 40 personnel. It was just all over the place. It made them so unpredictable. It was one of the best called games by Todd Orlando that I've seen since he's been here.
Yeah,
No
and
question.
you brought up the pressure, and you look at just havoc plays created by the defense, and in context, like I remember West Virginia, everybody wanted, and even the coaches said that they wish they could have got more pressure. There's only 6 havoc plays. This one, 13 havoc plays from the end. You see a lot from DBs. There was a couple from Stearns, like you said, and you have your normal ones from guys like, say, Devontae Davis. But across the board, to be able to have, it looks like 10 players had havoc plays to where you had 10 different guys at least put pressure, and you can see what happens when you bring some pressure. And we heard Tom Herman talk about the situation and hoping to just get into the passing downs and how much easier it makes things for the secondary. And we've been talking about this on the show all season long. If you look at Purdy again this week, under 4 yards per attempt, 3.87 yards per attempt on passing downs, with overall 6 of 13 for 68 yards, a pick, and 2 sacks. So not only do you hold them to the 3.8 per attempt, also you're getting home on passing downs, which shows how good your pass rush is.
The most sacks I believe Iowa State's allowed since 2016, actually against Texas. And I'll say this too: he was multiple, not only in philosophy and ideology, but also in formations and also with his personnel, moving different guys around.
It was a hybrid.
So to me, that's how you want to attack modern offenses. You got to be as multiple as they are. So that's what I'll give him credit for. And I thought it was a great game plan. So kudos to him. I will say this: it wasn't an air raid DNA though. And the offenses that have wrecked Todd Orlando and wrecked every DC in this conference
and in the
have
world
come from the air raid DNA. It's Cliff Kingsbury, it's Dana Holgerson, it's Lincoln Riley. You know what I mean? Like, those are the offenses he's had trouble with. And when you're playing the Big 12 title game, hopefully that's the case. Not looking ahead, that's what you're going to have to deal with. It's going to be Holgerson.
It's going to be one or the other.
Lincoln Riley. It's going to be that air raid DNA. So ultimately, you cannot avoid the truth. You got to figure out the air raid DNA. You got to solve what right now NFL defenses can't figure out. Right. You just see those 2 air raid quarterbacks last night score more points.
I was saying Charlie Strong was looking at the TV. See, it's hard to stop, man.
First time we've seen 2 teams score 50 points. A team score 50 points and lose in the NFL. Jared Goff air raid, Patrick Mahomes air raid. Andy Reid recently said, he says Cliff Kingsbury is a genius. He's one of the greatest offensive minds he's ever been around. This is Andy Reid now talking about Cliff Kingsbury, all right?
So
first air raid, baby. The way we talk spring,
when he gets fired over there at Texas Tech, y'all want to fire him? You know what, Texas? Y'all should hire him. If y'all don't hire him, somebody in the NFL's going to hire him. Because
I think that's where his next stop
is. A year ago this week.
And you know what, Dallas Cowboys? It wouldn't be crazy. I'm telling you, it wouldn't be crazy if Jason Garrett keeps his job for him to fire Scott Linehan and bring on Cliff Kingsbury.
Last year.
It wouldn't be crazy at all.
Remember last year, this exact week, Thanksgiving week, all Texas fans were hoping Kingsbury would get fired so he could come be a type of...
No, not everybody. Rod B said that first, and then everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
Well, I remember that. I remember we were yelling.
I was like, no, I want you to beat him so bad they fire him right there and then go offer him a contract right there on the spot, Tom Herman. Go say, when you go in the post-game handshake, go, hey, brother, as soon as they do it, I'll make you the highest paid. I'll make you the highest paid coordinator in the country.
I've got it on pretty good authority. I've got it on pretty good authority. That's what Tom Herman was planning on doing. Like if they won, Texas wins that game and Cliff Kingsbury gets fired.
Yeah.
Because we forget the Texas offense. Like it's so just fascinating to look at how good they've been this year and think about just how awful they were last year. That Tom Herman felt like that was going to be the shot in the arm to bring Cliff Kingsbury in. Now they're doing it without Cliff Kingsbury. But, yeah, to your point, Rod, I do think the NFL is probably going to be Cliff Kingsbury's next stop because that's where the league is going. But
Lincoln Riley, too.
But getting back to Iowa State, and you're right, Iowa State is more, I'd say, conventional because Matt Campbell does have spread principles in his offense. He's really a pro spread, power spread
He's what
guy.
Tom Herman wants to be philosophically.
I like the fact, and you broke it down excellently, Rod, and just mentioning being multiple and use of your personnel. And look, we know this defense has personnel issues. Like those aren't things that you fix. Right, those aren't like I said. Unless you're Alabama or Clemson, everybody's got
some 3 or 4 holes on that defense. Right. Like, damn. I
so
gotta fix it. Yeah.
When you start looking at this Texas defense, though, my thing going into this game in the last few weeks was, if you're going to go down swinging with your best punch. Like, do what you do, be who you are. And I think this win, especially on defense, it was a culture win as much as anything else. And you mentioned going back to the padded practices and going back to tackling to the ground. I think this is Todd Orlando saying, look, if we're going to get beat, I'm going to get beat being who I am and doing what we do, and that's being physical, that's being aggressive, and bringing pressure. And the ways they brought pressure, Rod, they're bringing boundary blitzes, field blitzes, corner blitzes, safety blitzes, nickels, linebackers slanting on the defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've come to expect from a Todd Orlando defense.
Well, remember when Clay Helton called him the master of the art of confusion?
Yeah.
in that game, he lived up to that title. Like it was I remember there's a dime package that they're using now, and they use the Lightning. And they didn't use the Lightning as much. They stayed in that 3-3-5 a lot of the time. But when they got him in predictable passing situations, they'd play that dime. They'd put Malcolm Roach at the D tackle, and they'd put a Minahu wide. They were the only guys whose hands were in the dirt. And then they would put like Gary Johnson in the B gap, and they'd line like Anthony Wheeler in the B gap and Jeffrey McCulloch. Or remember Joseph Asai got that strip sack? That they were in that formation. He was just the other guy on the stand up rush in. And sometimes it could be Hager or whatever, but then they would line the linebackers up in what it's been referred to, and I don't know other references for it and other terminology for it, but we call it a ghost front, where you never know where they're coming from. They're ghosts, essentially. They could splits or they could drop back, so they're just standing up there. And, dude, Brock Purdy, and you treated him like a true freshman. Make him process as much information as possible. Dude, you think about what this true freshman was dealing with. Right? You think about 100-something thousand people, and we all admit that was one of the best home field environments we've ever seen.
I'll say it was the best. I'll say it was the best.
You know what I mean? Like it was up there, man. You get chills like thinking about it. It was awesome, and that he's dealing with that. So biggest crowd he played in front of, and think about all of the things that Todd Orlando was throwing at him. So he's got now Malcolm Roach playing D tackle and Charles Amina, who's wide, so he's worried about that. But then you got Anthony Wheeler and Jeffrey McCulloch coming from different angles. He's got the safeties like creeping up and B.J. Foster on the outside. Hell, if you're a true freshman, you're like, this is not what I saw on film, coach. This is not what you told. This is not what I saw on film. This is not. This is not what I saw. These guys are moving around all over the damn place. I have no idea who's going where or what they're doing, and that's exactly what they look like. Like he couldn't figure out. Only thing he could figure out was Hakeem Butler is open one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like, this was the only thing they knew. Because to blitz that much, you're going to have to leave a couple of guys one-on-one in certain situations. That was the only thing he knew at certain times that he could diagnose with precision was Hakeem Butler one-on-one with Devontae Davis, one-on-one with Chris Boyd. I'm chunking it up. And, Hakeem Butler won his fair share, but he didn't get a touchdown, and he didn't get a lot of yards after the catch. And, and that's the guy that was averaging, 23 yards per catch?
22.7, yep.
So I think, honestly, if that's what you give up, because you got to give up something. You know what I mean? Like, you can't stop everything. That's pretty good to give up. And he knew David Montgomery was not in that game early, so it's like they can't move the chains. If I can just get them behind the chains, they are so screwed.
Yeah, and then get a lead until he comes back in and make him be least effective just because of game script, because you're ahead, and make them throw, and it's whenever you've been successful. And you brought it up there, the idea that you look at the Havocs that I mentioned, Minahu, fewest on the team of anybody that registered, half of one, but then you had 2 from Stearns, 2 from Boyd, had another 1 from Foster, 1 from Locke, 1 from Davis, and Devontae Davis had sort of been the guy that you could predict that would be the guy coming in previous weeks, and it was just cool to see. Like you said, it was sort of how we talked about the idea that you can be comfortable in the chaos, and every coordinator has this odd situation where it's a one-game sample, just like these random football games that we're all playing, and you might find one on a good day or a bad day, but how it can go in the right direction or the wrong direction. And if you stay one step ahead, it allows the defense or the offense in this case to become defensive because they're reacting to what the defense says.
That, you know what? I don't think anybody's put it in a better, more articulate way than that, because you're right. Essentially, offenses are now blitzing the defense, right?
Yes.
That's what the pre-snap motion, the funk is all about.
That's what the offense is trying to do to you,
they're
to
minus
change you.
Splits. They're basically trying to
identify,
blitz you, right? As an offense. So they're trying to dictate the tempo now. As a defense, you got to be the one that forces them to become like they're
take what
like
you
on
give,
their heels, like
and
you
fall back to something like
they got to start diagnosing. Well, what are they doing? Like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know what is happening. Like, you know what I mean? Which negates whatever advantage you're trying to get schematically by your pre-snap motion shifts and all that kind of stuff.
And if Texas gets that all the time, Texas will win, because Texas normally has better players, and Texas has been literally putting these players in better position. We haven't seen as many results, but this year is a lot better than last year. So if you stack these together, it's good.
You know who was actually on the forefront of this? There wasn't enough patience of the Texas fan base, and there wasn't enough job security. Manny Diaz.
Yep.
Manny Diaz, that was it. Remember, that was Manny Diaz's big thing.
His crazy defense.
Crazy, chaotic stuff, and have the quarterback, for a second, go, what the hell am I looking at? And then by the time he figures it out, he's sacked.
When we grow up in this era of the zone blitz, watching it.
I think what happened to him, he was just in the Big 12, and there was enough job security at that time. The Texas,
and he was facing the best coaches. If, say, he was on the East Coast facing somebody, they're like, we find a few holes we can actually pick at those.
And I'm glad you brought up Manny Diaz.
But we know Manny Diaz is awesome. He's one one of the best DCs in the country.
And that's one thing I wanted to touch on with this game. And we talked about this last week. And the one thing I felt like Todd Orlando had going for him that Manny Diaz didn't at the end, and Vance Bedford didn't at the end, at some point the players lost faith in the plan and the message from the defensive coordinator. And once Rod, you played for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Once the players lose faith, man, you're screwed as a head coach.
Yeah. Once they don't believe in the play call that you can even execute it. Yeah. They basically it's a lose-lose situation. Because no matter what the call, we're gonna fail here. Yeah, right. I agree.
And again, not to slight your NFL career, Rod, with the Lions.
No. But the guys give up on the system all the time.
Exactly.
That's when our coach is gonna get fired.
And I never felt like, even in the Texas Tech game, the message from the players, and look, take post-game press conference quotes and sound bites for whatever you want to, but you talk to guys like Charles Omenihu, you talk to guys like Devontae Davis, and they really believed in Todd Orlando's message of, look, man, just keep swinging. If you bust your tail and get to the football and you play with good effort, man, at some point something good's going to happen. And we talked about, like, the game plan against Texas Tech through the middle portions is almost like, look, if you just stick with it at some point, Jet Duffy's going to do something to screw this up. And when he does, make sure you're there to capitalize.
Exactly right.
And that's how you get 3 red zone turnovers. And so I say that to say this. The game plan, Rod, that was a defense that was confident in this game plan. And it was almost like they were excited, like they were chomping at the bit to go execute. Because I can't tell you at any point this year when I've seen blitzes executed and timed as well as they were on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, some guys, I think B.J. Foster just has a natural knack for it, but you're right. That was one of the problems before. They were, and I can't call them lazy, but they weren't timed very accurately.
The best time, and I know there were other good blitzes, but the one that sticks out in my mind, there was a play early in that game where Chris Boyd blitzes from the short side of the field, and it's like that's a cut up you want on a coaching film. Because you can't coach a corner blitz better than that.
Yeah.
Like the way you stay in coverage until the last minute and then boom, you sell it. I can't describe like how in awe I was. Like, oh my God, that was one of the cleanest corner blitzes I've ever seen at any level of football.
Yeah.
And then add on the psychological impact that it then has on a true freshman quarterback, seeing things and then seeing it actually impact him, and then now the rest of the game, you're gonna be wondering where's it coming from this time.
And I wonder, because I didn't see a lot of, I got to go back and look, like the zone blitz schemes where they drop D linemen like they had been doing
with the minute
right? I didn't see many. So, so there were a lot of things. They were subtle, but, man, they were, it was so impactful, a lot of the things that ended up happening for Texas. Like you talk about the time blitzes being one.
The other thing, and I think part of the reason why Todd Orlando was aggressive early, Rod, you said it well, getting them behind the chains, because without David Montgomery, one of your best playmakers on the field, you had no shot in 3rd and long.
Yeah, it wasn't the fear
factor. I think part of that, and I wonder if part of that was Todd Orlando thinking, look, kind of like we talked about, by the time David Montgomery gets in the game, you need to get it to a point to where his impact has to be maximized in other ways other than just being able to turn around and hand him the ball.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then you didn't take advantage of his absence.
And you can see he's a damn good player. When he comes in, that was a difference.
Yeah.
A noticeable difference.
But the game was at a point where you had to throw the football.
Yeah,
like you're down, 17-3 at halftime, and you're in a hole, and Texas got the ball to start the second half. Like, yeah, you then the clock's against you at that point. You can't just turn around and hand the ball. Yeah. So that couldn't have worked out any better than it did for Texas.
No, I totally agree. And I mean that's taking advantage of the fact that no David Montgomery. I think Todd Orlando at that point said, you know what, we're going to be the aggressor without having to worry about that guy. I don't have to worry about, the modus operandi we talk about. We got to take away the run, make them one-dimensional. All right, that's the first step. Second step, put pressure on the quarterback. Third step, force turnovers. You don't have to really worry about number one. David Montgomery was already out, so their running game, unless they tried to use Brock Purdy, I think to supplement that, but that's not enough. And Todd Orlando knew, like, well, I just got to pressure the quarterback then. I ain't got to worry about step number one in my MO. I just got to go get after Purdy, and that started that from the jump. That set the tone. And then even the run blitzes. I mean, they were blitzing on standard rundowns.
Yeah.
No. We're resetting the line of scrimmage. We're getting in the backfield, and we know this other guy. We know David Montgomery is real skilled. All right, we know he can break tackles probably as well as any running back in the country, but he ain't playing. So this other guy, we're gonna see if he's that damn good, if he can avoid the chaos and be redirected and also still be able to make yards. And you know what? He couldn't.
Rod,
he did it once or twice.
Rod, I want you to go kind of next level here and break down this from an X's and O's standpoint. we talked about using different guys as a spy. Like sometimes Gary Johnson was a spy. B.J. Foster was a spy at sometimes.
So
Caden Stearns was a spy.
Yeah.
I just want your thoughts on the spy concept, how it works, how it doesn't work, and also blitzing on rundowns, because that's something that we don't talk about a lot. But it seemed like they were bringing pressure on rundowns a lot more than we've seen Texas do the last few weeks.
It makes sense, especially if you're having trouble stopping the run. That, you know what, instead of us being on our heels in Texas, what were people attacking Texas with? The outside zone. You know what I mean? That's what they were doing, trying to get to the edges.
That was really it, pretty much.
That was pretty much
wide
it, yeah.
stretch,
You know what I mean? It didn't stretch, whatever you want to call it. And then Texas, they had to go east and west. The defensive line, instead of penetrating, going north and south, they had to go east and west. Well, you know what? Let's eliminate that altogether. Let's just shoot gaps. You know what I mean? Let's have guys shoot gaps. And once they shoot gaps, and then we can let our linebackers, because then you kind of nullify the offensive lineman being able to get to the second level with our linebackers flow. And then we'll add guys from the secondary to the run defense too, and then we'll just let speed flow to the football. So I actually like blitzing on rundowns. I think it's something that Todd Orlando should do more of, because in the Big 12, I mean, I think everybody's trying to get to the perimeter, especially on Texas. You know, you don't want your linemen running east and west. You got to get your linemen running straight ahead and penetrating. And we don't have a Puna forward, you know what I mean? Then, you know what, let's just get guys who can penetrate, like Malcolm Roach, playing more at D-tackle. Let's just get run blitzes. You know, let's get guys, linebackers, shooting gaps, which they did in the blitz game. So I think it'd be the aggressor.
Yeah.
Don't allow the offense to put you on your heels. It's just the
Become
same example.
offensive.
That's the frustrating thing, because that's what we talked about in the offseason, that this defense was going to need to be, because you no longer had Puna Ford. You no longer had just that hellacious beast of a 3-down nose tackle, which you need to run a 3-man front. I mean, that's really where it all starts. It's Puna Ford, it's Casey Hampton, it's Ed Oliver. It's a guy that can really occupy 4 gaps on any given down. No, you don't have that guy.
Yeah,
but you have other pieces where you can be effective. You just have to do it in a different
exactly.
way.
And to the whole player thing, or the spy, you usually take that guy from the secondary. The only risk is you're gonna leave your corner. You're gonna have guys that are gonna be on islands with wide receivers at that point. But when you had Brock Purdy, and they were trying to make Brock Purdy the focal point of their running game, I think he got like two rushing first downs on Texas, I want to say, just running the football early on. I got to go back and look at it. But you can tell, like, hey, nothing's open. He was going to run it. So I think, that was just a smart move. Just gives him one more thing to watch. And once he looks at that and has to identify the guy as a hole player, that keeps him from running, or he's going to hold the ball a little bit more. Your blitzes can get home. So I think it was just one more added element to try to discombobulate Brock Purdy. I mean, and that's just be multiple. He didn't do it every time, and he did it with different guys. Yeah. So if he did it every time with Gary Johnson, then Brock Purdy goes, okay, I know Gary Johnson's right there. That means he's vacating this to do it. That means I can probably have a hole over here, or I can look to drop it off to this guy. No, it was a different guy every time, which means, oh crap, Gary Johnson's still there, but this time I think it's Caden Stearns who's the whole player. So now I got to look around. I got to go to another read, and that's all it is, man. It's a chess match. Yep. You want to make him have to process more information, and the only way to do that is to change it up as much as possible. What they say about playing the all-time greats like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, nobody can defend him. Nobody can defend Drew Brees. But what do? We're just gonna throw as much crap at him as we can, and hope we're gonna pray to God that he makes a mistake or makes a wrong read or holds the ball too long.
Look at NFL last night. All the defensive scores that changed the game, and at the end, the interception that came up, because otherwise there's going to be another Tyreek Hill touchdown.
And I think
so it ain't rocket science.
No, and that's again, I'll go back to it. That's the frustrating thing with Todd Orlando and this defense and the struggles they've been having, because even in the preseason, when you talk to guys like Cliff Kingsbury and Lincoln Riley about what's tough to what makes moving the ball against the Todd Orlando defense tough, it's the same things we talked about. And I mean,
he's the master of the art of confusion.
Cliff Kingsbury told me, he said, you've got to help your quarterback, especially early, process what he's seeing, because if not, he's going to start seeing ghosts, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and we've heard that from Sam Darnold said that.
Yeah.
Right? Last year he said the same thing. And I think for some reason Todd Orlando got a little bit more conservative. I really don't know why. It's like, no, man, like, go down swinging. That's what you do.
And the last 2 weeks, you've had in standard downs, because you're talking about in standard downs and being effective in bringing them, 3 sacks against Tech on standard downs, 2 sacks this past week on standard downs, and that's huge. Look at the 4 weeks combined all the way back to the Oklahoma game. It was 0-1, 0-1. So you had 2 sacks combined on standard downs the previous 4 games. Then you end up having 2 and 3. You've had 5 in the last 2 games. If you look back, we were talking earlier, what other great defensive performances you can maybe have seen from Texas? You got to go all the way back to the K-State game where, numerically they grade out about the same, and that was the last time Texas had multiple sacks on standard downs, had 2 in the K-State game. Then we saw a lot of offense really mess with Texas for 4 weeks, only had 2 in 4 games, and then now you've had 5 the last 2, and that's big if you can get that on standard downs.
To Matt's point, if you start looking at the S&P Plus numbers, the defensive performance in that K-State game was in the 92nd percentile nationally against Iowa State in 91st percentile. And really in the last 3 weeks, Oklahoma State 18th percentile, West Virginia 10, Texas Tech 10.
Yeah.
So
and that's
you
adjusted
literally
for opponent.
in a 3-week stretch, you went from being one of the worst defenses in the country to being one of the best.
Also not air raid.
That's the only.
True.
It's all it is.
Like, I hate to be that guy that keeps bringing this up. But
it's only accurate.
They're not air raid.
Yeah, you can't sugarcoat that. You can't sugarcoat that.
But I don't want to I don't want to diss the great improvements that they've made. I don't want to be that guy, but. Yes, it's true.
And it's because in the air raid, it's harder to bring pressure or maybe to be confident in bringing pressure.
Well, no, it is because you got the
Point
crossing
being,
routes happening.
So, but that's why
really
we're
quick,
seeing
like a running back that's that play that West Virginia loves to
more
run.
people.
That running back, he just basically just runs like a spear route, like a sprint route right out of the backfield. And he just tosses it to him right.
I mean, look what Maryland did though. Maryland did the same thing with the jet sweep motion to dislocate the defense, and then you look across the board though. There's a certain elements that can take away numbers from the defense. That then the defensive coordinator becomes limited at his options of what he can bring, and that just comes down to good coaching on both ends. That's the fun chess match nerds like to
watch.
Get
to watch that Maryland-Ohio State game? Man,
yes, that was maybe the nuttiest game I've ever seen. That was out of this world.
I chose that over Baylor TCU, which was bowling shoe ugly.
It was terrible.
At the same time, it was like there was a 3-0 Michigan State, Nebraska or something, and on the other channel it was Maryland, Ohio State. Urban Meyer, watching it, I was like, the dude's gonna have to step down after the game.
I'm watching a Big 12. I'm watching a Big 12 game between Baylor and TCU. That's like a 9-6 game the whole way. And then I'm watching a Big 10 game where Maryland puts like 35 on Ohio State in the first half.
Hey man, Matt Canada, he's got a lot of principles and concepts that he shares with like Big 12 air raid teams and spread teams.
Little baby booger bowling.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But
honestly, man, looking at Kansas, if I'm Les Miles and he's available, Matt Canada might be my call for offensive coordinator.
Damn, that's
Canada's going to want a head coaching job, but he.
That's a damn good call.
I don't know if he's going to move
job.
to that.
Yeah, if he would take that job.
And wouldn't that be something if Matt Canada, who was fired at LSU by Ed Orgeron, who hired him, and then Les goes from LSU to Kansas, and then brings Matt Canada with him?
That's brilliant.
It would
coaching
blow my mind
circle of
if
life, man.
That is brilliant, man.
But let's we're talking about offense. Let's talk about the Texas offense, and really, Rod, just from the jump, I mean, they were efficient. They scored in the first drive, but the drive I want to talk about, and I talked about this being a culture win. Mm-hmm. They go 94 yards in 10 plays, and they have a 3rd and 6. That's a 20-yard completion to Lil Jordan Humphrey, and it's complete beyond the sticks. But he pushes the pile, and then the fact that you get Calvin Anderson, Elijah Rodriguez, and Zach Shackelford all going and pushing the pile with him to get him extra yards. Very similar to this tunnel screen on 3rd and long we saw in the Oklahoma game that really kind of changed the complexion of that game. I just thought, both sides of the ball, man, this was Texas just getting back to, okay, who are we? And Tom Herman mentioned it because I asked him about it again on Monday in his press conference, and he said, playing Iowa State, who they feel they respect Matt Campbell. They know Iowa State preaches a physical brand. Again, it's very similar to the philosophy Texas has. Yeah. They knew they were going to have to be physical. And, Rod, that's why I think if you're a Texas fan, you feel so good about this win, not just because you beat a ranked team, not just because you beat a ranked team by a comfortable margin, but the way that game unfolded, it's like you gave Iowa State no shot because you hit them in the mouth and you just kept hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting until you eventually just knocked them out at the end of the game.
Yeah, and it's strange. We've talked about this before that's Tom Herman's brand of football is that he wants to be the more physical team against Oklahoma. That's where Texas had their significant advantage. You know what I mean? You can't say they were the more skilled team. Even Tom Herman admitted this week, right? He said he called Texas overachievers. Like, no, we're overachievers for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to have a lot of all Big 12. I think they will have some all Big 12 selections, but we're not gonna have a lot of first team all Big 12 selections. I think what he means by that is we don't win necessarily because we are better at every position just yet. You know what I mean? Than our opponent. Yeah. There's still some places where Iowa State probably man for man has better man to man matchups, against Texas, which should never actually be the case.
Right.
But what he's saying is, like you're saying, we're doing it with culture now. We're imposing our will on teams. Going into that game, you could argue Iowa State was a better team than Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking about as a team. In terms of they had a better defense. Brock Purdy was playing really, really well. I mean, they
1
were
through
averaging-
85 and how they're performing.
Yeah, like they were on a 5-game win streak. You could argue they were a better team. Not saying they had more talent,
Right.
but they were a better team than Texas. In that game, Texas not only was a better team, they were more physical, and we've been at least bragging about Matt Campbell that, that's how Iowa State wins, because they don't have a lot of talent, right? They win because they're like K-State was back in the day. They're hard-nosed. Even the players, Charles Amino, who was saying that last week, was like, nah, man, they coming in here, they just going to try to punk us, man. That's the way they play ball, and they go back to the huddle, and they take care of business. And I think Texas was ready to meet that standard of physicality. It's almost like, and that's why, Texas is taking a step forward. That Texas-Oklahoma game, you've talked about it. What you said, you call it a line of scrimmage game. Yep. I call it the State Fair street fight. It's a game where you got to understand it's going to be physical. Like it's going to be a lot of pain. It's going to be a lot of just a lot of fighting. It's going to be a lot of physicality, and you got to match it, and you got to overcome it, and you have to beat it. You will get punched in the mouth.
Play to the echo of the whistle.
Yeah, like you're going to get punched in the mouth. Like you got to expect it, and then you got to come back even hungrier, and you got to come back even harder. That's what the Texas OU game is all about. And Iowa State presented to me a challenge very similar, and Texas met that challenge and overcame it. So it's another step in the right direction, man. The program, Texas ain't back, but damn, they're on the right track.
And that's a good point right there, because if you look at all these things aligning that we're talking about, first off, like the players going out and being highly efficient and performing well in their duties, but the coaches also putting them in the right spot. And we used to talk about how you would see these other teams play up to the situation and be able to play up. Well, right now, if you look at Texas overall, coaches get fired because Texas always has players. You're Texas, you're always going to get players. Yeah. So if you can get all those other things that we're talking about right now, the few things that lift lesser opponents, or then you combine scheme, then you combine, like, say, the players playing for one another, and you just add up all these elements that you maybe had seen one lacking here one year, one lacking here one year, and you get these things that you're used to seeing your opponents bring to you, and then now we've always had the better players if you put it on paper, but the game's not on paper. And once you start to stack these up, you can see that the upside can be there, and those are sort of the signs that, we look at the record and you can say, yeah, it's an expected growth and a good growth, but when you start to stack that on top of, these are all the things they were deficient in that now they're performing at expectation, and these players are young, that's where you can continue to have that exponential growth once you get the right pieces into the pie.
To your point, Matt, I'll point out two examples, the one that shows you where Texas was and one that shows you a similar trajectory Texas is on. Florida and USC. Like, both those schools are similar to Texas. And you should always have – it's USC. You should always have players. Yeah. It's University of Florida. You should always have players. But now you're seeing Dan Mullen take talent that Jim McElwain couldn't win games with, and now they're, I watched their South Carolina game. I mean, I think they've got a chance to go win, what are they, 9 wins right now? Yeah. 8 wins right now?
Doing well.
If they beat Florida State, I think they'll be 9-3, and they got a chance to go get them 10 wins with a bowl game. And you're seeing the opposite at USC where Texas was, which – we saw that team here in Austin in September. Like, USC has talent.
They do it.
Yeah.
Like, they've got – are they as talented as some of those Pete Carroll teams? Absolutely not.
No,
but it's USC. They've got talent. There's no reason USC should be a 7-loss team.
And just lost
Which they will
a lesser
be
team with better scheme with Chip Kelly. Like, Chip Kelly's a punchline, but he's a good coach, and he's a guy that come in and can elevate. He can say, I have these pieces. It's like, I can be a bit of a formula guy, but I got my scheme, and once you tell me what I have, I'll make it work.
Which SC is going to be a 7-loss team once Notre Dame bashes their head in when they play. But, I mean, and that's probably why Clay Helton's going to get fired, because it's about more than just having talent and schemes. It's you got to have a culture of toughness, and, man, USC is just not a tough football team right now.
You get fired.
Hey, you look at Dan Mullen. I mean, Dan Mullen's like, look, man, if he did what he did at Mississippi State, now you're giving him much better pieces to work with. It's no different than Tom Herman. Like, you saw what he did and turned that thing around at Houston, and now it's like, well, if he wants to have tough physical practices, well, when you get it rolling and recruiting like you should at Texas, you can have those practices, because if you lose somebody, if you lose a starter on the offensive line to an injury in practice, well, our number 6 guy's been chomping at the bit to play, and he's probably just as good or better than any of the 5 we've got starting right now. So just roll him in and roll with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, you're right. I mean, with Tom Herman, I mean, we all saw what he did at U of H, and the thought process was, oh man, just add the talent, like literally just add some talent to that culture, to that philosophy, and boom, you'll have something special. It does seem to be that simple. It's weird, but it does seem to be. It's almost a Mac Brown thing was the same way. It was
Well,
like,
but
look what he's doing at North Carolina.
Well, look at the 2014 OSU team.
It goes back to
yeah.
it goes back to
Bring
what
him to Texas.
Rod, you put it better than I could have. If you're a blue blood program and you've got the right guy, it shouldn't take you more than a year or two to figure out if you've got the right guy.
Yeah. Well, the Blue Bloods, it turns around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It does.
Because you had that luckiness that you get talent. Texas, look at our recruiting classes, how horrid the team had been, and Charlie Strong was still bringing in the best classes in the nation.
Yeah.
Herman,
Because again, it's Texas, man. You should get players every year.
That's the built-in advantage, and that's why when you still hear people, what we saw Saturday for a little tiny windows, what you always hear, well, there's nothing that compares to Texas. It's on its own element, because if you can get the players and get the environment and get all these things, you can see what the upside can be. It's just pretty crazy to see that it had lulled away for about a decade.
Rod, you like bringing up the Chris Rock example. Like, you don't get credit for things you're supposed to do. Like, oh, you had a top 10 recruiting class at Texas. Great. That's what you're supposed to do.
It ain't hard to recruit at Texas, man.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's like saying it's hard to pull women in a nice car. Like, it's easy. You just roll up in the car. You ain't really got to say that. Just roll up in the nice car and get out and walk and look.
Yeah.
And they'll come to you. Like,
So,
that's
we're
Texas.
talking about Charlie
Yeah, good
Strong, and that's no better segue than to talk about this game for Texas. Returning to the scene of the crime, man. You
They
guys
get me pumped up, man. This is a scary game for me. I'm a little scared.
You guys had the luxury to watch that game 2 years ago on TV.
scary, man.
I was there, man. I was there.
Yeah.
It was real.
That was a nightmare.
It was
Like
bad.
that was the thing of
My
the
memory
horror.
goes back, like I remember it being cold in my house, and it was a dark evening,
Oh,
and you
man.
see, I forgot what wide receivers on the ground in the end zone, and Minahu's freaking out at the
I'll
end
never
of the game.
forget, man,
That was a horrible day.
walking off the field and coaches' wives are crying, and
Wow.
going into that post-game press conference, and the distance from me to Charlie Strong is the distance from me to Matt right now, and you don't want to make eye contact with him. Like, it's that awkward, because, like, he knows at that point.
Everybody
you
knows.
know.
That's why the wives are crying. They know. It's
And-
like,
and I
damn,
think-
gotta kick my kids out of school.
The look you explained
I
looked like what he looked like when
So
they
our
lost
house-
at Iowa State, too.
I forget how the question was phrased, but Mike Finger asked Charlie Strong the question, and it wasn't even like, it's like, Charlie, what do you think about the future, or something like that, and it's like, because you had to ask it, but it's like, I mean,
Look at his face.
Yeah.
Look at you just see. You look at that.
Did
To
his-
quote
did-
Charlie Weiss, did you look at that pile of crap out there?
To quote another Kansas
that's
team.
what it
But
should have
Rod-
been. Did you look at that pile of crap out there?
Rod, here's why you're right in being nervous about this game.
I'm nervous, man. I ain't
It
gonna
has
lie.
nothing to do with this Texas team. It has nothing to do with anything Kansas has. It has nothing to do, even with David Beatty coaching his last game, has nothing to do with Puka Williams rushing for 1,000 yards or whatever he had against Oklahoma on Saturday.
Mhm.
It is the
Senior night,
fact that
At 11
you
a.m.
are playing an 11 o'clock game in Lawrence, Kansas,
Kansas.
on Thanksgiving weekend, which there will be no
Nobody's-
students
nobody's
there.
gonna be there, man.
Probably going to have 15,000 people
Like
there.
playing in a parking lot.
Yeah,
There's going to
empty,
be
weird stadium.
no juice, no energy.
Nothing.
Even
Even
though
though-
Lawrence like Ames is in the middle of nowhere.
No,
where
no,
the team
no,
has to
no.
bus
Lawrence
in.
is like 30 minutes outside of Kansas
All right,
City.
that's
like,
at
it's
least
not,
a little
yeah,
better.
it's-
It isn't out in the middle.
They still see some type of
Other humans in another
civilization,
cornfield
yeah.
in an empty
Some,
stadium.
yeah.
It's not like
metropolitan
Manhattan.
area.
Like Manhattan is out in
Yeah.
the freaking
It's
middle
out in
of
the
nowhere.
cornfield,
Yeah,
yeah.
right off the Flint Hills. But man,
There
that's,
wouldn't be anybody at the game.
No,
It'll be
there's
cold.
no juice. Yeah, it's supposed to
It'll
be
be-
like in the mid 40s and
There
raining.
may not even. Oh, that's even worse. No
Yeah.
sunshine.
And then you
Yeah,
have Les
man.
Miles show up on the sideline.
No,
eat
I'm
some
telling. It's
grass.
gonna be a weird. I agree. That's their biggest home field advantage. That it's boring and it's a lifeless.
And you don't respect the
atmosphere.
opponent. Let's be honest. You don't respect the opponent. It's
You
Kansas.
You can try, but it's hard.
You
It's
can
hard.
try.
You can try. No,
I'd
you
like
really
to
can.
pull in-
but ultimately, you're not going to be as up for Kansas as you will be for Oklahoma or something. But hopefully, they understand what's at stake.
I think
And
that's the
that-
big thing with this
That's
team.
why I agree with you about the atmosphere. It can lull you to sleep, and obviously, it happened versus Texas. It almost happened in that Mac Brown regime. Remember late in Mac
Yeah.
Brown?
Don't remind me, man.
2012.
2012, man.
Yeah, it almost
you were
happened
there,
to me,
Rod.
too. Yeah,
Jeff
I
was
remember.
That was like 21-13.
But it was nobody there. It was, you know what I mean? It's why guys were trying to wear, like, they were trying to come out shirtless because it was cold and psych themselves up for the game. No. It is what it is. It's Kansas. But I think that this group, we've seen a lot of maturity from this group. It's what we love about them, right? They beat K-State on the road. They've done a lot of things, like winning when your starting quarterback goes down. They've shown winning on senior night, something they hadn't done. I mean, they were 1-7, I think, in their previous 8 senior nights. I think they're mature enough to go there and understand we got to take care of business. It ain't got to be pretty. It ain't got to be, you know what I mean? We ain't got to win, the bikini contest.
Style points don't matter.
Yeah.
We just got to go out there and win the damn game. We got to go beat Kansas. Just that simple.
I'll tell you why
I think they can do that.
I'll tell you the best sign of maturity for this team and why Texas fans should feel good about this. And if you weren't in the stadium, you don't really realize that this happened. So before the game, during pregame, the end of the Oklahoma State-West Virginia game was being shown on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're watching the press box, but it's kind of going in and out. But it's on for like the very end of regulation.
Yeah.
And as soon as the ball goes incomplete and they're storming the field in Stillwater, like you saw Texas players like celebrating, like because at that point some of those guys knew like, well, our destiny's back in our hands, like we control it. And I remember Breckenhager like throws his hands up in the air, and I see Charles Omenihu go grab him and say something to him, and it wasn't like, hey, why don't you walk back over here? It was like a stern look on his face.
Get your mind right.
And I asked Charles after the game, I said, what did you say to Brecken? He said, I told him to stop celebrating because that didn't matter. And his exact quote was, what happened in Stillwater is not going to help us beat Iowa State. We got a task at hand. We got to deal with this.
Yeah.
And for your team leaders and for Tom Herman and Rod, the one thing I immediately thought about you guys in 2001 in Texas Stadium when you guys find out right before the Colorado game, hey, Tennessee beat Florida. You win this game, you're going to Pasadena to play Miami.
Yeah.
But Tom Herman didn't have the decision Mac Brown had where it's like, do you tell him? Do you not tell him? It's, okay, they saw it. They know.
Yeah.
Now you got to deal with it.
The new era of entertainment, the entertainment ecosystem. It's got to happen.
Psychologically, it's like these kids are
you
used
can't
to
pretend
stuff
like,
playing
well,
out
you
and-
didn't see that. No, everybody saw
with
it.
Twitter and social media. I mean, we know the okay, cool, hook 'em. Everybody knows what's behind that, and you can't hide that from the kids. Like they know. It's like I mean, you got kids now. You got kids. I mean, you got kids. You can hide stuff from them for a certain amount of time until they get to a certain age. They get to a certain age, they'll start figuring out, oh, Daddy likes to smoke this stuff that stinks. You know what I mean? Like, and he does it all the time. I know what that is. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they'll figure it out. You can't hide that stuff from the kids. So I agree with you. Tom Herman, I think, is doing a masterful job of managing, like, the distractions on and off the field with the team.
I think that's
keeping them focused. 1-0, right? He's always said, we're just trying to go 1-0.
And I talk
almost Belichickian. We're trying to go 1-0.
You talk to some of the players after the game and, about, how that unfolded at the end of the Oklahoma State game. And Andrew Beck said he was trying not to watch it, but then he said, I hear the student section start going nuts, so you have to turn around and see why they're yelling. Yeah. And then I asked Patrick Vahe, he was like, I know, Coach preaches 1-0, but, I mean, it's on the big screen. Like, you can't not see it,
Yeah.
So, but that's a hell of a job by your coaching staff and your veteran leadership to say, look, the impact of that game, it doesn't mean anything if you don't win this game right now.
Yeah, I wonder if he went to the locker room and said anything.
Herman?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
About it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what he told the team. Yeah. He said, if you don't win this game, what happened up there doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, what happens after this doesn't matter if you don't win this game.
No, I get it. I mean, I think he's done a great job of keeping the team focused. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the outside distractions. And that includes even going back to Maryland. Give him props after that, too.
And I can't see this team having a major letdown to where this game is close in the second half against Kansas because Rod, but I think this is a team that realizes there are no more hypotheticals.
This is an air raid. This offense has air raid roots too.
It has air raid roots, but we'll break it down.
Texas
it ain't
right now.
I know it ain't, but they got a running back they can run.
But I think this team realizes
40 on Oklahoma.
I think you've got enough veterans on this team that they realize there are no more hypotheticals. This is the situation. You win this game, you're playing for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm just saying, I agree with Matt. You got to find close. Because, I mean, like, it could be within 10 points in the second half.
Easily. Because right now the betting line is 15.
I mean? That's close to me.
Well, I mean,
Sam
if you get a
really
story.
his health. He didn't have a week to recover. Hell, Sam Ellinger may not make it through the whole game.
And let's Matt go ahead and what's the line? What's the line right now?
Texas is a 15-point favorite. It looks like some books it opened at 15.5 and has went down to 15. So I mean, you could easily see Texas covering by scoring a late touchdown to make it 38-21, but that means it's 31-21 going into that. Or if Texas even doesn't cover and you get a late touchdown, you win 35-24, but that means it was 28-24 before you get that, and you still win by double digits.
The offense is not meant to blow people out.
It's not.
It's not that kind of an offense.
And on the road, this team has not came close to performing offensively like you'd expect.
And they'll have ball control too, because they will try to run. Their best players, they're running back.
So let's talk about the Texas offense in that situation. And the Sam Ellinger injury, from what Tom Herman said and from what we've heard to this point, it sounds like it's not as severe. It's not a really good word to put
not
on
as
it,
much
it's not.
pain.
Yeah, it's not. It's a different injury than the first injury. That said, you've got a short week, and it's going to be a tough decision for Tom Herman in terms of, okay, do you roll Sam Ellinger out there if he's not 100%, and what percentage is he? And I guess the thing you really have to ask, Rod, is this an injury that can get worse if he plays?
Well, in theory, when you're talking about these joints and inflammation, just a road game flying to it. If you think back to the last one, you had a full week to heal, and then you had at home, coming in, there was a Baylor game, and then you go up to Oklahoma State. This one, you're going on the road again in one less day, and then add in a plane flight, which everybody knows nowadays medically it's just been proven
it's gonna be cold.
that it's going to negate about a day of healing when you go up into that pressurized chamber, and the inflammation gets reinflamed. And being before he had a SC joint thing, that's a pain threshold thing, and inflammation causes pain. So it's just going to come down to how pain, and that's just the unpredictable nature of these type of injuries.
And it's going to be cold too, which also impacts joint
it
injuries.
doesn't help the situation.
So, am I crazy thinking that Texas can win this game and cover with Shane Buechele at quarterback?
That's a good question. No, you're not crazy. No, not at all. No.
They can cover. I wouldn't bet for them
It's
too.
not going to be. Yeah, I agree. It's not going to. Well, I wouldn't bet on it. Yeah, if Shane's going to start.
If you put your money on it, then I'd be like, it'd be close. They'll win by 14.
I am confident Texas could win with Shane Buechele if he ends up starting this game or have to finish this game. No question.
I like the fact that now you're at the
I've seen it already. I've seen
it. And
multiple times.
And I think the difference between the Baylor game and the Iowa State game, I think Shane Buechele knew going into the locker room at halftime, okay, I need to get my mind right because I'm probably starting the second half.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think there was no, you rush him on the field, and does he need to knock the rust off? It's the first time he's played all year. There was no rust. I think he knew, and they knew the plan, and he goes 10 for 10 in the second half, 89 yards and a touchdown. So I think if you just get Shane Buechele ready, and again, like you said, Rod,
sure they're doing obviously this week.
I've been pointing out all year, this offense isn't made to blow people out. It's meant to really manage a game,
control
based
the game,
on what you need, what the game requires,
how they
the
can
game flow is.
complement the other phases of the game. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to have a healthier Colin Johnson than the Colin Johnson we saw on Saturday, which it's almost like they got Colin Johnson in to do what he needed to do on the first drive, and it's like, all right, just kind of sprinkle him in after that.
Well, they just needed to prove to Iowa State that he can still be a threat. Don't you just put him in man coverage with some scrub and forget about it.
Yeah.
You better at least put that guy 7-8 yards off.
Which they did.
So it was they did exactly what they needed to do, because that was the thing. Like, man, is Colin Johnson even 60%? They may not even devote any resources.
They had their star position, like their hybrid safety linebacker. They had that guy, Colin Johnson, one-on-one.
Yeah, and it was like, we'll still burn you with him. Yeah. Even at 75, he's still pretty damn good.
Yeah. So you'll have a healthier Colin Johnson on offense. You got Keontae Ingram and Trey Watson both fighting through hip injuries.
And you got LJ.
But Rod, the way this offensive line is playing, and I go back to that 94-yard drive in the Iowa State game. Like, this offensive line, it's not a great offensive line, but they're at the point right now where you can say, yeah, they're average. And average, you can't even quantify how much better that is than what we saw last year, which was brutally abysmal. Like, whatever, it was like the flaming landfill of offensive lines. It was awful.
Yep, and you look at this year, all the way across the board, you're up in the top half if you look at some of the offensive line stats, from opportunity rate to stuff rate, 54 and 46, to on standard downs and preventing sacks, and then line yards per carry, you're actually 27th and 35, so that's real good. And even on passing situations, sack rate isn't bad. So, when you're in the top 60 across the board, that's that top half, and that's all we've been asking for, especially when it was so deficient coming in.
Just don't
and
be terrible.
Yes.
Don't be terrible.
And that's a big part about the defense, and what's being fixed with the defense is not just one glaring, miscommunication issue that negates, say, 2 drives, you get a field goal, 1 bad busted play, the opponent gets a touchdown. They've outscored you despite you maybe outperforming the last 20 plays. They get 1 to negate you. So if you can just get the most out of your offense and then limit them, should be set up good, because Texas has been performing pretty well in conference play.
And I like the fact that those pieces up front, they keep getting better. Like, we see Zach Shackelford is noticeably getting better. Sam Cosme is getting better. Elijah Rodriguez is getting better. So I like what you're getting out of the offensive line right now. I think you're good enough to move the ball on Kansas. But to me, Rod, this comes down to the Texas defense against the Kansas offense. Did you find whatever stat nugget you were looking for there, Rod?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, since you spent so much time and effort.
It wasn't worth it, actually, either.
Okay.
I just
like
couldn't
Rod
stop
was
thinking about it. I was like, I know it's in here. Okay, basically what the stat was, remember yesterday we were talking on the show about this offensive line. I think this offensive line is better than the 09 line.
I think it is.
2009
Yeah,
I agree.
Line. And we were debating whether it was better than the 2013. Was it 2013 offensive line?
13, yes.
And I looked up the guys that were on that line, and you're right. That offensive line had a lot of NFL guys. I don't know if it was as schematically sound as this line is. Like, I think this line has more, like, schematically, I like it better in terms of the technique that's taught. But they had Trey Hopkins, I believe, right? Cedric Flowers. Was Desmond Harrison like a backup on that line?
Yes, he was.
Yep.
He's a starting left tackle in the league now for the Browns.
Been starting for a while.
Jeff Swain. I forgot about Jeff Swain.
Yes, Jeff Swain was a big part of that.
One of the best blocking tight ends in the
Trey
league.
Hopkins was also part of that line.
Yeah, they had Trey Hopkins, Cedric Flowers, Desmond Harrison.
2 40-game starters
Jeff
with
Swain.
Mason Walters and Dom Espinoza.
I'm going to agree with you. That offensive line was better. Now I'm looking back at the talent. So I was getting stats.
That line was a better run block. Like, that line was the best run blocking offensive line we've seen in Texas since the 05.
They only allowed
06.
16 sacks, I think.
That's impressive.
Yeah, they only allowed 16 sacks.
Yeah, but keep in mind, once David Ash got hurt and they went to Case McCoy, they weren't throwing the ball all that much.
That's
like
true,
they
but
really
16 sacks
they
is pretty damn good.
they leaned on Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown a lot, and then when Jonathan Gray went down, Malcolm Brown basically got his carries. Like, Malcolm Brown had something like it was well over 200 carries.
What's
that
this?
year.
What would the sack total at now? Like 13 that Texas has allowed? It's like 13.
You got that number
it's like
handy,
13
Matt?
or 14 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up real
It's
quick.
around
Got their stats right here.
My point being, like,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that line was better. But this O-line, probably the best O-line Texas had. We got to go back close to 10 years.
This is a
second best.
This is a more complete group, I think, than that 2013 group. It's a better.
It has a higher floor. That's a better way of saying. Like, it doesn't, the drop off. I think, I agree with you on that.
25.
Was
for
I don't
one-
know if the ceiling is.
I'm gonna miss like totally butcher the expression, but the whole is better than the sum of the parts with this offensive line.
You didn't butcher that.
Yep. And 25 sacks
Thanks.
allowed
Glad I
for
got that.
175. But when you have a guy like
They've
Allen
allowed
Gurr,
25 sacks so far?
yeah, but it can
okay.
be. I mean, when you have a running quarterback tackled behind the line of
off.
scrimmage, there could be a stat keeper that errs on a lot more sack sides, so that isn't as accurate.
There's been more than a couple of those.
Case McCoy wouldn't be afraid to wing a ball if he was under pressure. He was getting rid of it back in the day. That could help those.
There's been a couple of those sacks too that Sam's taken that he probably shouldn't.
Could have thrown the ball away.
Yeah, like a handful.
Yeah.
Such is life with a sophomore
he's a true
quarterback
sophomore,
sometimes.
exactly.
So, but he's played really good considering he's a true sophomore.
Been amazing.
But Rod, I think this comes down to how the Texas defense defends Kansas offense. And you talk about, it's got air raid roots,
It's got
but
some area, but it doesn't have any personnel that's dynamic enough to.
Peyton Bender is not a very good quarterback.
No.
Outside of Steven Sims, there's nothing at the skill positions on the perimeter that worries you at all.
They'll throw in I think they'll play some trick plays though. Since the guys are maybe the last time Beatty's there, or not maybe it is the last time Beatty's gonna be there. So like, I don't give a damn. We're gonna get wild and crazy, and why not? Just so we can beat Texas again. So I think you're gonna get a ton of random trick plays. When I say a ton, I mean 4 maybe.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Right? Yeah.
I really think the game plan, Rod, for Todd Orlando, devote upwards of 8 bodies to the run.
Stop it.
Yeah.
You should be. If you can't cover them man to man on the outside, then hell, it don't matter. You're not gonna win the Big 12 title anyway.
Right.
Yep. Yeah,
you can't stop them. What's happening against Holgerson and Riley? You know.
But they scored 40 on Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's defense is just atrocious. Like it is. It's really, really bad. So I agree with you. I think you shut the run down on them, and then you make Bender beat you.
Bender.
Make Bender beat you. If Bender beat you, then go with God. You're in trouble anyway. Yeah. I agree. Make that guy beat you. Just no, and then, you know what? I think that's what they did versus Purdy in a sense. So
Yeah.
I think they'll do the same thing. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because that running back I heard is a real deal.
Puka Williams is
He's a true freshman.
He's gonna be a freshman All-American. Yeah.
Yep, 7 yards
True
per
freshman.
carry.
Where's he from?
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Yeah.
That's swamp people.
Yeah, you start looking down at
Swamp people.
you look at Kansas's roster, and this is something Les Miles is going to have to do when you start looking at, okay, do you retain anybody on staff?
Oh.
Tony Hall's one of their assistant coaches who's got Louisiana roots, and you start looking at some of Kansas's best players, who like the guys that were highly touted recruits on that roster. All guys Hall recruited, all guys from Louisiana.
Yeah. Okay. No. In terms of per capita, Louisiana's always in the top.
Like Puka
4 or
Williams,
5
Mike Lee,
states.
Corion Harris, like all those guys are all Louisiana guys.
I think, man, I'm intrigued by Clint Bowen. I know we talked about David Beatty going to, being friends with Tom Herman.
He and Tom Herman are very
stuff.
good friends.
Yeah, and potentially he could end up being addition to the staff. I like Clint Bowen, dude.
Okay, I wanted to have this discussion. I'm glad we got time.
Well, we got to get deep into it, but I think he's got the right philosophy about the Big 12, just forcing turnovers, and he does it with Kansas talent, for God's sake.
I was talking.
They're leading the Big 12 right now in takeaways and in turnover margin.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Kevin Flaherty, who's our national basketball writer at 24/7 Sports, is the foremost KU football historian you'll meet. Kevin's a KU grad and loves KU football.
Nice.
So we're talking about Bowen, and I brought up the idea of Bowen's been in that KU bubble for he went to Lawrence High School, he's been in that KU bubble for a long time.
Right.
And I said, it's probably not a bad idea, as long as he's been in this league, for Todd Orlando to bring him in as a defensive analyst and just kind of pick his brain about the league. And he doesn't have to worry about recruiting. It's just, hey, help us with schemes and help us against this league.
Teams, help us break this down.
So we started talking about Clint Bowen, and I didn't realize Bowen had been a coach at Kansas so long. Do you know who he learned defense from, Rod, when he was the defensive coordinator at Kansas back in the day? Bill Young. When Bill Young
Oklahoma
was
State
the
back
DC
in the day.
at Kansas.
I didn't know Bill Young was even at Kansas.
Yeah, under Mangino.
Yeah.
And
was that back then Aqib Talib days?
Aqib Talib and Chris Harris, yes. And we've talked about Bill Young kind of being really implementing the modern plan that all Big 12 defenses should live by.
The cheat code, baby.
And
just forced turnovers,
Clint Bowen learned a lot of his defense from Bill Young, and Bill Young's philosophy, it's not all that different from Todd Orlando.
It's not.
It's, you can throw for as many yards on me as you want. You're not going to run the ball down my throat.
You will be one-dimensional.
Yes.
And then when you're one-dimensional throwing the ball, that's when I can break out all my toys.
Yes.
And all my exotic blitzes.
And that's Clint Bowen's kind of an extension of Bill Young. And what did Bill Young do at Oklahoma State? What did he decide? You know what? It's about possessions and turnovers.
Yep. My team's going to score. So I'm just going to roll the dice.
We're going to gamble. We're going to go for the interception because we're just going to try to limit your possessions.
And get them 1 or 2 extra possessions. I do that, we win.
And if y'all score, offense is back, and they'll get it back real quick, and I'll do it all over again.
And he's doing that at Kansas, but as you point out, they don't have the complementary offense that they can, those added possessions that they're getting with takeaways can help the team win games because they can't score any damn points, really. But that defense, they're forcing turnovers, guys, with Kansas talent. They're leading the Big 12 in takeaways, leading the Big 12 in turnover margin, and it ain't even close, by the way. Texas is second in turnover margin. It ain't even close.
I agree with you. It's insane. It's plus 15 now.
It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and that's what it's going to prove. The turnover luck.
No. Yeah. But you go back and look at it the last 3 or 4 years, though, Kansas is always pretty high in forcing turnovers.
Other than last year,
they're pretty high.
You go back to Bill Young's time at Kansas and you look at what Bowen's done. They're always
pretty high
near the top of the league.
They don't have great talent.
Takeaways.
Like, how the hell
and you always, going back to Charles Gordon, you've always seen how's this guy from Kansas first or second in the league in interceptions?
Yep.
They've always got a guy that's top 2 or 3 in the league in picks.
With Dorrance Armstrong, they got a guy. Yeah. They keep a little pass rusher. No, I'm with you. They always have 1 or 2 pieces, and they get maximized there.
So if we're not saying Kansas plays great defense all the time,
but the modern era of the Big 12.
So if I'm Tom Herman and Todd Orlando, I try to get Clint Bowen on my staff as a defensive analyst. And even just for a year, just pick his brain and just see, hey, look, you've been in that Kansas ball for a long time. Why don't you come down to Austin?
Hang out to Austin for
you don't
a
have
year
to
or two,
recruit.
man.
You don't have to do anything. We don't even need you on the field coaching. We just want you in the film room.
That's it, bro.
I just want to pick your brain and let's work on how.
Research and development.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll be quick about this. I know we're running out of time. The best offense in the NFL is New Orleans Saints. They have, what the head of their research and development is? Sean Payton. Yeah. He brags about it. Just every week I go out of my way. I watch film on all the teams that I really like. I watch film on Sean McVay. I watch film every week on Josh McDaniels. I watch film every week on the best offenses out there. And I think he goes to the college game too. He didn't reveal that. My point being, everybody's got to have research and development teams now, and not just one or two guys. No, you need a whole department. You need a sector.
Yeah.
That's just researching.
Like
but
Bama
watching,
has hired all those guys.
Exactly. He's watching the best offenses in the country and going, I steal that play, steal that play, steal that play. Let's take it. Let's go.
And that was my
You know what I
favorite
mean?
quote I heard
And
from Ed Orgeron. He was crediting my analysts. His analysts were the main
That's what your
guys.
analysts are supposed to be doing now. Not only examining the sabermetrics and the analytics. No. But I need guys that watch football, that know football, and just steal plays. Because it is truly a copycat league, literally and figuratively. Steal plays from other people. And I'm sure Texas has a copycat staff too. That's how the Philly special gets around the way it does, and everybody starts running.
And then now everybody's looking
and
for
now
it.
everybody's got that in their playbook. Dude, research and development, R&D, baby. Clint Bowen,
I do like
head of R&D.
when you look at the defense. Getting back to Bone, when you look at the defensive staff, you go back to last season, and one of these guys is still on the staff. But you look at who Todd Orlando, like his quality control guys are, like who his analysts are. One is Roosevelt Majid, who played at Iowa State, so he's been around the league for a long time. Played in, I believe, was a GA at Iowa State. And he also brought in Trey Haverty, who played at Texas Tech.
Oh, yeah.
Had been on Gary Patterson's staff at TCU.
Yeah.
Had been on Cliff Kingsbury's staff at Texas Tech. So Trey Haverty had been around the Big 12 for a long time. So Todd Orlando really got two guys that understood the league and could help him say, yeah, this is these guys' tendencies. This is some stuff that's working. And it's just talking ball, Rod. That's really what you're doing.
Is Haverty an offensive guy?
Haverty's a defensive guy, and Haverty is actually on Sonny Dykes' staff at SMU now.
As a defensive,
As like a legit, I think he's their
assistant
defensive coordinator, actually.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty cool.
If he's not, he's an assistant coach. I know that much. But Trey Haverty had been, again, in the war room with Gary Patterson. He's been around the league a long time. I just think the more guys you can get that around you that specifically defensively, that understand the league, the better off you're going to be.
I agree. Amen.
So the stakes are real simple in Lawrence, gentlemen. Winning, you're in. Texas wins this game, and they're playing either Oklahoma or West Virginia for the belt at AT&T Stadium. I think, I've said this, instead of, because you can't give out the golden hat twice. Like Texas has the golden hat, and they've got it for a year, and they should. But if it's Texas and Oklahoma, shouldn't you get, the Ric Flair big gold belt and give that out to the winner of that game the second time around?
The Big 12's not cool enough for that, though.
No, they're not. And actually,
yeah, it's sitting there seeing Bowlesby talking about.
Matt, I was going to get through this whole podcast without.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So if you haven't seen it, Breckenhager said what Texas people say about Oklahoma. He said, OU sucks and OU has no defense, and said that after
11-12 and OU still sucks.
said that
Just
after
a
the Iowa
Texas
State game.
joke. And now you know what? Bob Bowlesby sucks.
The Big 12.
The
Big 12 said Breckenhager violated their sportsmanship agreement by disparaging another team, and as per the terms of the reprimand, because apparently this is the second time he's done this. I guess the first time was maybe the Oklahoma State game. I have no idea. They didn't say what the first offense was. But on the second offense, you have to issue a public apology for your public reprimand.
Yeah.
You know what I hope happened? What I sincerely hope happened? I hope that whoever, in the Sports Information Office at Texas helped Breckenhager type that thing out and sent it out and said, "Are you good? Yeah, we're good." I hope Brecken made them print that out. He went to the printer. He got his formal public apology and went to the bathroom and wiped with it, because that's what I think of the Big 12 public reprimand of Breckenhager. This is a league, Rod, that publicly upholds. We have the toughest path to the college football playoff. That's not something you should be proud of.
Yeah.
It's only the toughest path because you made it the toughest path by adding a conference championship game.
What about your terrible officiating that everybody thinks is
very true?
Yeah, how about you improve on that? Make that a priority.
Yeah, how about you send a public apology out to all these teams for the crappy officiating?
Yeah.
These formal public apologies that are forced, that don't mean anything, and it's like, we're going to reprimand you, and now you have to print this out. It's just hilarious.
What about
it's
the
absurd.
fact that you are, everybody believes that you are a conference that is destined to implode in the near future.
The Michael Scott of Big 12 commissioner.
Baylor is still gone without consequences for the Baylor sexual assault scandal. There are bigger issues to worry about than Breckenhager and him saying that OU sucks.
The Kansas basketball program has been implicated in a probe by the FBI.
Yeah, they're bigger fish for you to fry,
the federal freaking government.
Yeah. Yes, but the thing is he only cares about the image of his conference and the power.
That tells me Bob Bowlesby, and if he has, he hasn't paid attention when he's been at the Texas OU game. That tells me he's never been there. Because there ain't much sportsmanlike on that day at the Cotton Bowl if you've ever been there.
Well, see, that's the thing. He doesn't care about it, actually. He only cares about what the image is, so then he can go and get an apology to come from the situation. He doesn't actually care about all those things. It's just how his conference shines look upon him, and it's just corporate America bleeding into your football game, which is BS.
No, it's stupidity.
There
is
you go.
what it
Agreed.
is.
It's the Big 12.
There you go.
Gosh. All right. So thanks for bringing that up, Matt.
Yeah.
Um,
Bowlesby sucks.
So Breckenhager, fresh off of a public reprimand from the Big 12.
He should have said, okay, cool.
That
hook 'em.
again, I hope he used as toilet paper when he was done issuing it. He will be with Texas when the Longhorns go to Lawrence. Win and you're in. Texas wins. They play the winner of Oklahoma, West Virginia for the Big 12 title. Matt,
Yes, sir.
what do you think about this Kansas game?
Oh, I think it'll be one that might be a little bit uglier than we expect. I see. It's hard to predict, when you don't know about the QB situation. Like we sort of knew about, like say Duffy Bowman. This one, I don't even think we know that much. Like it's hard to gauge where you're at. And then since there's so much meaning on this game for the next one, you want a healthy Ellinger, but you don't want to take this for granted and do all the things that you're trying to tell your team not to do and go out there and do. But I got faith in Buechele. And I think Buechele, even if it is him, and I'm expecting it maybe to be mostly Buechele or a lesser version of Ellinger, we talked about this before, take away some arm strength, take away some mobility, you basically get Buechele. So the offense may look quite similar no matter which one's in there. It'll be ugly enough to get the win, but I think Texas will maybe cover. I'm not going to bet on it in something like 31-17.
Rod B, what say you?
Yeah, I agree with your theory though about the lull, the boring atmosphere.
It's gonna
It can be hard to get yourself energized and get motivated, but they should understand.
By the
what
way,
they-
screw the Big 12 too for making this game the game Texas plays on Thanksgiving weekend on the road in Lawrence.
This is also true.
I can't wait till this league gets nuked and Texas can go do something else.
I don't want the league nuked. They just need more new leadership. But I digress. Kansas, I do think that I don't know. Kansas will have a lot of fight in them. I don't know how long that'll last. So I think early on, first quarter, maybe it's closer than Longhorn fans would like. Longhorns pull away. I say they pull away, end up winning 33 to. Ooh, I'm not going to give Texas. How many points I'm going to give Kansas? The question.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, 30. I'm going to go 33 to 17. Yeah, I'm going right around you, 33 to 17.
Man, you're spot on. That over-under's been floating around 51 also.
Yeah, 33 to 17.
Yeah, right now it looks like one book 50.5, another book up to 51.5.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
I will not take Texas to cover, but I do think it's going to be a comfortable win. And keep this in mind. Tom Herman said, there's no karma for, what happened 2 years ago. It's a different program. And it is. A lot has changed at Texas.
Yeah.
In the 2 years since that game happened. But, especially if Shane Buechele starts this game.
A lot of shame on that field.
Shane Buechele was the starting quarterback for that game in Lawrence.
Yeah.
And guys like Charles Omenihu and Patrick Vahe, they were there. I think Texas wants this game. I do think Kansas will fight. I do think Kansas will score. I would not be shocked if Kansas goes up 7-0 in this game. But W-I-N, Whiskey Indian November. The point of this game is win, get it done,
baby.
get the W,
Just
go
win,
to
baby.
AT&T Stadium, play for the belt. Texas wins 27-14.
What's the
Oh,
Whiskey
we'll tie that.
Indian November reference?
That's a little Major Pain for you.
There you go. Oh, I love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
W-I-N.
Nonsense.
All right, gentlemen, enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Hey,
You too, brother.
senor.
Happy
I will be
Thanksgiving.
spending
all you
Thanksgiving
guys.
afternoon and evening
God.
in Kansas.
Oh, man.
So you're
God
traveling on Turkey Day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might go to a movie or something. I don't know. Because I'm going to miss, actually, I'm probably going to miss most of the
Go
Cowboys
see The
game.
Wizard of Oz.
I'll figure something out. But, Matt, thanks for everything, man.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Rod B, appreciate the time and the knowledge.
Always, brother. Always a good time.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, the best damn videographer in the podcast game who's back with us this week. Thank you very much, Travis.
Boom.
Good video board operator, too.
Oh, shout out.
For everybody at the Austin Radio Network and the Horn 1049, 1019 AM 1260. Streaming on the Horn app and at hornfm.com, where you can hear Rod each and every weekday on the Rodcast from 1 to 3.
Shameless plug.
And thanks to Matt, you can get Longhorn Blitz anywhere you get your podcasts and always get our archives on the Longhorn Blitz SoundCloud page.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Horn family, for the Horns 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. Remember, for the latest Longhorn news 24/7, visit horns247.com.